All right, guys, happy Friday. Well, if we've learned anything this week, it's that the media should have just left Janet Jackson alone. That really is the lesson. That really is the moral. I mean, I didn't want to be doing this. I told my husband I was going to chill for the rest of the year because we've had enough excitement this year. Fired, banned from YouTube. I was like, I'm just going to relax. But then the media came out and tried to paint Janet Jackson as mentally unbalanced. And I'll be honest, something came over me. I was just like, and so here we are. Welcome back to Candace. All right, I'm actually really happy it's Friday because I feel like we need the weekend to go through all of the emails and all the documents, and I'm just so obsessed with this now that I just need a day break, or a 2-day break rather, to really dive into this, because now we have an entire family, and I need to look into specifically Vioris's family, other relatives. Obviously, I'm not going to share any of their information. We've found a lot, but it would help. It would help us better understand why Kamala is hiding an entire piece of her family. It's completely bizarre. So what we want to do today, because so many of you guys are emailing me, is to just organize what we know for a fact, plus tell you a couple of new things that we've discovered in the last few hours. And then if you want to send me more stuff, just make sure it's one of the things, or it's pertaining to one of the things that we have a question mark on. So first, we're going to just go through a timeline of the relevant people. Let's start with Beryl Magdalene Christie. So we're going to actually give you guys this timeline so you can look through it. Anything that is italicized means that it's still a question mark. We're still wondering whether or not this document could be Beryl or could be somebody else, and we're awaiting a confirmation. What we know for a fact is that Beryl was born in 1917. We know this because we have the birth certificate, and Iris's name, which is Beryl's mother, is listed as Iris Finnegan on the birth certificate. Again, Beryl is spelled slightly differently, but we know because of Kamala's book that name spelling shifted over the years and was also spelled with a Y. We then have a document, and this is highly suspicious, that Beryl birthed Donald Harris. Allegedly, this could be Kamala's father. The only problem is that we're looking here not at a birth certificate, but a death certificate, which would put the birth of Donald around 1938. It looks like this infant died just a few months short of turning 2 years old. So could have been born in 1938, died in 1940 November. And it says, oddly, that this is the son of Albert Harris. So that's confusing. But this is the only document that we could find for a Donald Harris that has a mother named Beryl Harris. And again, that Donald died. So this one is a question mark. We know for a fact, however, that Beryl Magdalene Finnegan was married in 1944. She was 25 years old. We have that marriage certificate, and she was married to Lawford Newland. And here is where things get strange, because we were able to locate the divorce document between Lawford Newland and Beryl Magdalene, and that divorce took place in 1956. Okay, so they were married. That would mean if Donald Harris, J. Harris, was in fact born, Kamala's father was in fact born in 1938, and they didn't divorce until 1956, and he grew up with Beryl, as he signifies in his book, My Mother, Miss Beryl, or in his Jamaican paper that he wrote about his ancestral roots, that would mean throughout the majority of his young life, from the time he was 6 till the time he was 18, his mother, Miss Beryl, was married to Lawford Newland, and yet he declines to mention Lawford Newland at all. Major, major question mark. We move on to a possible death certificate, and I feel very strongly that this is the correct death certificate. 1960 for Beryl Christie Finnegan. We are learning here that she died of fibroids, and as we know, if this is a woman who suffered with birth, this could make sense. The story could make sense that she died a couple of years after she got divorced. But again, we're not completely sure. We're looking for something that is concrete, where we can say, yes, this Beryl Finnegan died in 1960, which then makes Kamala's timeline of having met her grandmother who had died before she was even born highly suspicious. Then we jump to 1995 because people have been sharing this other possible death certificate. And I'm going to rank this as a very low likelihood. One, because somebody sent me an email and they gave me a strong lead that this could actually be a different Beryl Christie Clark. And we're going to look into that further. But also because the person listed as having been there when she died was Douglas Finnegan. And we don't have a Douglas Finnegan in this family. And also, if you look at the date of death and the age, 81 years old, that would mean that this individual was born in 1914, which would have been before our Beryl was born. So we're going to continue to rule this one out by trying to locate who that Douglas Finnegan is that signed. But I rank this as a very low likelihood, but we want to keep it here as possible because it's not entirely ruled out. Now let's jump over to Oscar Joseph Harris, Beryl's alleged husband, who I am now certain was never her husband, and I'll explain why. Okay, we know for a fact that Oscar Joseph Harris, who Kamala purports is her grandfather in her book, was born in 1914. On April 5th, we have that birth document, making it all the more suspicious that we can't find her alleged father's, Donald Harris's, who was born after him. We then know, which we discovered yesterday, super huge development, that he married and that wedding was recorded in the local newspaper, the Daily Gleaner. And you can see, even though it's a shadowed photo, that very much looks like the photo of Oscar Joseph Harris that she shared. And because of the details that were provided in this article, we know for a fact that it is him because it lists the fact that his brother Newton stood in as best man. And we know for a fact that Newton is the brother. So we know for a fact that they got married, and he died in 1976 in St. Catherine. We have his death certificate. Now, I want to point this out to you because this is actually something that's quite odd. Allegedly, he only had one child, and that child was Kamala's father. That's what we are told, that his only child was Donald J. Harris. But something's not right there, because if you look at this death certificate, look at the bottom here. You see that the person that is the informant, letting them know that he died, is Christopher Harris. And when you look under, it asks, what is your qualification? Essentially, what is your qualification to inform? And it's his son. It says in parentheses, his qualification is son. And so his son was there, and his son's name is Christopher Harris, not Donald Harris. And I'm just wondering, who is Christopher Harris? This is a major question mark. Donald Harris, do you have a brother named Christopher Harris? If not, is Donald Harris actually the son of Oscar Harris? We'll get into more of that later. Okay, now let's look at Viora Anita Cambridge Harris, because we know that she got married. What we know for a fact about her is that she was born in 1927. We were able to locate her birth certificate. Yes, Viora Cambridge was born in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. We know, again, as we already mentioned, that she married Oscar Joseph Harris, and we know that because there was a huge announcement about the wedding. And then we wanted to be able to track how long they stayed married for. Did they actually stay married until he died? And it looks like they did, in fact, stay married until he died. And this is how we know. Her name appears in that Daily Gleaner in 1966. So in the corner there, you can see that it says Viora Harris. It says Mrs. Viora Harris, implying that she is still married and she has been appointed to the senior postmaster position. So we know that they were still very much married at this time. And then we know that he died in 1976, and she kept his name by choice, okay, when she was naturalized in the United States. Okay, we found her documents of naturalization. I'm going to show that to you. This is in 1991. And there is a portion of this where it explicitly asks her if she wants to change her name. So she has the option here to go back to Cambridge. Her husband is now dead, and she decides she doesn't want to do that. You can see number 4 there. I request that my name be changed to none. So when she was naturalized, she kept her married last name, which is Viora Anita Harris. So major problem here, again, when we get into Donald J. Harris's story that he told in the newspaper about his Jamaican heritage, because we now know that they got married and then they stayed married until he died. So Mass Oscar, the entire time, was married to this white woman whose name is Viora Cambridge Harris. We then know that at some point she was able to abandon her marriage and maybe just filed something that he was deceased. We have not located that form, so that's another question mark, but she did remarry a man named Errol McPherson. Okay, in 1994. We know that for a fact because there are records down in Florida that indicate that. And then we know that she died in 2019 in Broward County. Of course, I've already shared with you yesterday the funeral website. So if you guys are like me and you like to take notes, we're leaving this up for you so that you can know exactly what it is that we have and follow this timeline as we continue to investigate it. So let's talk about the major issues that our timeline presents. So I believe it is undeniable, having seen her face and her smile, that Vioris is very clearly related to Kamala Harris. Okay? So obviously we naturally think that this must be Kamala Harris's grandmother. But here's a problem. In order for that to be Kamala Harris's grandmother, Vioris would have had to have birthed Donald Harris, Kamala's father, when she was just 11 years old. I find that to be extremely unlikely. Extremely unlikely that Vioris, and she would have been at Cambridge then, so they would have had to have had some sort of affair before they got married, okay? So he was born in 1938. She would have had to have been pregnant when she was 10, or she would have been pregnant in 1937, gave birth in 1938. Then they decided to hold off on the wedding until 1944. You know, maybe they did. Maybe he got a 10-year-old pregnant and they waited until she was older to get married. But I think that's extremely unlikely that an 11-year-old girl gave birth. And if she did give birth, I don't think her father would have walked her down the aisle as he did. We learned that from the entry in the Gleaner, in the Daily Gleaner. It was announced that her father, V.S. Cambridge, held her hand as they walked down the aisle. I think your dad, if some random person knocked you up at the age of 10, probably wouldn't have done that. He probably would have chased him with a shotgun. I'm imagining here. But that was what we would have to believe in order for this to be Kamala's grandmother. And the other thing that I keep asking myself is, why lie about this? Why is Kamala hiding this woman who she's very clearly closely related to? That's the other issue that I have, because okay, yeah, I get it. They always want to lean into being Black, but people don't have a problem if you just have one white grandparent. You know, she could have tried to grift this in a different way. She could have tried to complicate it in a different way, but she was dead set on hiding this woman. Why? There's something here that we're missing about Vioris Cambridge Harris that presents a problem for Kamala Harris. Is it because of the age gap? Maybe. The thing is, Donald J. Harris is the biggest problem in our story. We keep arriving at the Donald J. Harris problem. This is what we need to really focus all of our attention to, because we don't have any birth certificate for him, despite the fact that we have birth certificates for everyone else around him. We've got birth certificates for his uncles. We have birth certificates for his father. We have birth certificates for every single person in his orbit. We have birth certificate for Vioris. There's no reason. It's very clear that they had no troubles keeping records in this family. But there's no birth certificate for Donald J. Harris. We also cannot find a marriage certificate for him. So we mentioned to you guys yesterday, we found a marriage announcement here in Jamaica. We also found a marriage announcement near Oakland. The announcement, we've also seen an entry for the divorce. An entry, by the way, we still have not been able to find a divorce docket. We're looking for it in the court system. It should be there. But why does he not have any concrete documents? Where is their actual marriage certificate? There was an announcement, by the way, for an annulment, also published near Oakland, that they had filed for an annulment in 1971. But again, we cannot locate the marriage certificate, and I find that to be problematic. What we do know, by the way, so that you guys don't go off in the wrong direction, is that the mother is listed as Goplin Iyer. So we were at first looking for Shyamala Iyer. It looks like when they were married, she was married under just Goplin Iyer. And so if you're going to try to locate this marriage certificate, I would suggest editing to looking for her name in particular. My instinct is that he maybe had a different name that he was using, a different legal name that he was using. And then there is the problem with his entire story that he presents when he writes about his Jamaican heritage. His memory is either extremely faulty or he's an outright liar. In his memory, he writes that he completely neglects to include the fact that his mother, who he calls Miss Beryl, was married to Lawford Newland and remained married to him for 12 years of his life, from the time he was 6 until he was 18 years old. That is a major problem. You don't forget that when you're writing about your upbringing. Actually, she was married to somebody else. He recounts growing up with Oscar Harris, right? Mass Oscar, as he refers to him, and Miss Beryl. But both of them were married to other people when he was growing up, not to one another. This is why we cannot find a marriage record between Beryl and Oscar. My conclusion is they were never married. They were never married because Oscar was married to his wife, Vioris, until he died in 1976. So Donald's story makes entirely no sense. He lied or he misremembered. And in fact, the only scenario in which he is telling the truth about all of them being there on the farm at the exact same time is if Miss Iris was actually Vioris, the white woman, okay, who was married to his father, Oscar Harris, Mass Oscar, with the domestic help. Miss Beryl Finnegan, who died young, and her mother, Iris Finnegan, on hand. That could make sense to me, right? Because I understand how that works, how an entire family will work on a farm for another family. As you know, my grandfather grew up on a sharecropping farm in the South. This would have been around that same time. My grandfather was born in 1942, so I could see that making sense. But then again, we would have to arrive at the diabolical conclusion that she turned the help into her family because she wanted the public to think that she had a blacker history of some description. But as I said, we still have a major Donald Harris problem. We have no birth certificate, and we also don't know who or where Christopher Harris is, Oscar's son, who was present at the time of his death. I've looked up Christopher Harris in the records. I'm looking to see if there's any birth records in St. Anne Parish where they all seem to have been born. I've checked St. Elizabeth as well because that's where Vioris was born. I can't find any trace of a Christopher Harris. If you have better luck, send it to me at info@CandaceOwens.com. But here is something that we do know about Donald Harris. We know for a fact that Donald Harris was a committed communist. And what do we know about communists in general? Communists change their identities the entire time. They steal identities and they change their name. That is like a witchcraft that they have perfected. Historically speaking, every major communist figure that you know changed their name. They don't use their real names. Joseph Stalin was not Joseph Stalin. Vladimir Lenin was not Vladimir Lenin. Pol Pot was not Pol Pot. A good commie knows that you have to change your identity and continually change your identity. Here's my theory, okay? And again, now we are speculating. We are in the theory zone. So these are not backed by facts. And I'm going to continue to look and I'll debunk my own theory if I come across different evidence. But my gut is telling me that Donald Harris is simply lying about who he is. I'm not even convinced that he is Kamala's father at all. Because as I said, the lie has to be so big that it was worthy of her changing who her grandparent was in the storyline. What is it that she's hiding? Kamala also looks a little too much like her grandmother. Do you kind of get where I'm going with this? I'm going to show you this picture of Kamala with who we are told is her mother, Shyamala Goplin. Shyamala, again, if you're looking for documents pertaining to her, don't use Shyamala. But this is just a picture of Shyamala in her youth. And we're going to compare that to who we now know is definitely her relative, Vioris. Who does Kamala favor here? Like how her mother looks extremely Indian on the left-hand side there, but actually, I don't think she looks like Kamala at all. Who does she favor more? Now, I want to be clear. That's just we're using our own eyes. The reality is that genetics can be extremely unpredictable, especially when you start race mixing. Obviously, you know I have racially mixed kids. I have my son, my third born, has blonde hair. He looks exactly like his father, but he looks exactly like his father. You know, he looks exactly like his father. And I've seen kids that favor their grandparents. Like that could definitely happen. Like I said, genetics is funny business. You never know what gene you're going to hit. But I am just saying that she really, really, really favors Vioris, who she has gone through great lengths to obscure. I'm actually going to show you a picture of Kamala pictured between her grandparents, or at least Oscar J. Harris and Vioris. Like, I could see that being mom and dad, like potentially being her mother and her father. I don't know, obviously. I'm just saying that this feels like we are in the right family tree here. Then there is this interesting tidbit, because I'm like, if she's very, very related to Vioris, it's unlikely that she would have missed this funeral. Vioris was, as we mentioned, buried in Broward County. She was buried on June 29th, 2019. And if I'm correct here, and Kamala has known her throughout her entire life, she probably would have made sure she was down there in Broward County. Well, what we do know for a fact is that on the day before the funeral, Kamala was right up the road in Miami, on stage at the Democratic primary debate. Of course, this could just be a coincidence that she was in Florida, we know for a fact, the day before the funeral, but it would also be a coincidence that they waited 2 weeks after Vioris' death to bury her. So Vioris died on June 15th, and they didn't bury her until 2 weeks later on June 29th. That is irregularly long. The only time I've ever seen that, ever, I'm not kidding, in all of the funerals that I have attended in my lifetime, was when a friend of mine had her father die, and he was very close with Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton was running for president, and they waited 2 weeks so that Hillary Clinton had a hole in her schedule and would be able to attend the funeral. And I thought it was so odd, so odd. So perhaps they too were waiting for someone who was busy to be able to attend the funeral. Or maybe they just were going slow and decided to wait 2 weeks to bury her. We don't know. I'm just introducing these facts to the public because we are trying to paint a full picture. Now, unfortunately, Kamala's mother passed away back in 2009. I mean, there is an expression that people say, dead men tell no tales, and so we won't be able to prod that narrative any further. But I'm not going to let go of this narrative. I'm going to keep investigating this because I feel like we are very, very close, and there's something very big that we are missing here that Kamala wants hidden. And it obviously pertains to this woman, Vioris. And so if you can help at all this weekend with your research, I'm just hoping that this will help you better focus it. We really are looking for documents pertaining to Donald J. Harris, because there doesn't appear to be any documents pertaining to Christopher Harris, whoever he is. We're also trying to locate so that we can rule out one of the death certificates of Beryl, a Douglas Finnegan that would have been present for a different Beryl, who I believe is a different Beryl that had died in 1995. Let's try to focus this research, and we're going to stay on it. I absolutely promise you. All right, guys, I want to take a pause here to remind you about the skincare products that I use, Nimi. They are my favorite skincare brand out there. They've come to be known as America's skincare company because they formulate and manufacture all of their skincare products in the USA while supporting pro-American causes and organizations. Nimi Skincare is true American luxury skincare, but their prices are affordable since they deliver directly to your door and they cut out the big box retailer middleman. Nimi has everything you need to build an awesome daily skincare regimen to cleanse, brighten, protect, and help fight the key signs of aging. Another reason that I love Nimi is that they are a Christian-led company that stands firm in their values of faith, family, and freedom. So sign up right now at nimiskincare.com for a subscription, and you'll save 15% on your routine, plus save an additional 5% using code Candace at checkout. Plus, you'll receive a free gift on every third order. If you aren't sure where to start, take their skincare quiz to find the perfect routine for your skin type. That's Nimi, N-I-M-I, skincare.com, promo code Candace today. Before we get into your comments, I do want to update on the Diddy story. So apparently he is going to testify. Rather, he says he wants to testify. Through his attorney, Mark Agnifilo, he says that he's just excited to be able to testify in court. Agnifilo said, "I don't know that I could keep him off the stand." That's what he told TMZ. "I think he's very easy to tell his story, but no date has been set yet for the trial." Now, I would be very careful if I was a lawyer signaling that to the public, because if we know for a fact that Diddy is saying that he has recordings, or people are implying that he has recordings of politicians that are in positions of power and music execs that are in positions of power, and he's itching to be able to testify, I would think that puts him at risk, not of killing himself, but of maybe being killed in prison. And that is just a reality that we face. There have been many people that have been killed because of the secrets that they hold. And so I'm a bit concerned that he is signaling that he wants to testify in public. I will watch this closely, but let me say right now, very clearly, that Diddy did not kill himself. Is that too early? Are we too early on saying that? He did not kill himself. Also, one of the alleged male prostitutes has turned in video evidence of one of the freak-offs. Insane. Like, a male prostitute just came forward and provided federal investigators with an entire videotape. He's like, here, I happened to record myself at one of these infamous freak-offs, and he had direct knowledge of everything that took place. Apparently, the tape was made in May of 2023. He considers himself to be a whistleblower and described to investigators how he traveled from Atlanta to Miami for the sex film and how he went about finding another escort to engage in the debauchery. So we're hearing this same narrative over and over again through many different people. Essentially, Diddy employs male prostitutes. He invites these escorts over. He's into watching them sleep with his women and also watching them sleep with men. It's just incredibly disturbing. And again, the biggest piece of this is all of Hollywood knew. They are all so deranged. They are all, in my opinion, sexual deviants. And I feel like we have really turned the chapter on looking up to people in Hollywood. Like, why have we ever looked up to people in Hollywood? I revisit my own mindset growing up and all of the glamour of Hollywood, the glossy pages of Vogue, and thinking, oh my God, I would love to have their lives. And then you realize these people are rejects. These people are disgusting. They engage in debauchery. They have no self-control over their libido. They are all in some manner a prostitute, in my view, because they're prostituting themselves so they can get in the room with the right directors, the right music executives. They're willing to do anything for fame. And when it comes to that, at that moment, you really are doing a deal with the devil, which is why, as we've shown on past episodes, there have been so many artists that have stepped forward and have written in their music that they did a deal with the devil, that they essentially traded in their soul so that they could have fame. And then you wonder why it is that they're all so drug addled. You wonder why it is that so many of them suffer from alcohol addiction, because imagine having to look yourself in the mirror and to feel any dignity, to have any self-respect, knowing what you have lowered yourself to do. That is the reality. I think that is why so many of them struggle with addiction problems, is because they don't want to face themselves. They don't want to face their history. And really, the only way forward, the only way to move forward for those individuals is going to be that they need to find God. And let me tell you something, God ain't in Hollywood. I'll tell you that right now. I feel that energy, by the way. Even when I land in LA, I'm always saying, I feel like the devil lives here. It's very strange because it's just this culture of me, me, me. They're all narcissists. They're all injecting themselves. They're all trying to look a certain way. You know, it's like just one big Kardashian empire. They're all trying to live forever. They all believe that they can drink the fountain of youth and live forever because they have no substance. They have no values. They have nothing in their life that is real. Everything is fictitious. It's a very sad existence, an extremely sad existence when you think about it, because they think they're going to somehow beat time, and they don't. That's how you end up like Madonna. You know, you have a near 70-year-old woman who's taking her clothes off, vying for attention still, when people really just want her to go be a good grandma. That's what I would say. All right, guys, before I get into your comments, I want to remind you about American Financing, because mortgage interest rates are dropping and are now in the 4s. If you've been waiting to figure out how to get your finances in order, you need to call my friends at American Financing today. Many hardworking Americans are carrying high credit card debt balances that charge 20% or more each month. It's time to get rid of those. American Financing salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you tap into their home's equity to get out of high interest debt. They're saving their average customer $800 a month by doing this. With rates dropping, the decision is easy. All it takes is a 10-minute, no-cost, no-obligation phone call to find out how much you could be saving. If you start today, you may not even have to pay next month or the month after that's payments for mortgage. Call American Financing today at 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210. or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. That's americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, guys, let's get into some of your comments. I know usually we jump off of YouTube now and we head over to Rumble, but I had to pre-record this episode because I have to hop on a plane. So this is the first time that we have not been live in a very long time. This is just recorded a couple of hours before. So these are comments from yesterday's episodes. Amy writes, am I the only one who thinks it's hilarious that Kamala's father's name is Donald J? Yes, it is hilarious. And also, who is Donald J? That's really the mystery. We need to figure this out immediately. This person writes, there's no way Candace is not on the FBI and CIA watch list after poking holes in Kamala's family background. Stay safe, Candace. Hey, if it helps, I think I've been on that list for quite some time. So I'm comfortable there on the list and I will stay safe. But as I said, you can't just come for Janet Jackson. You can't wacko jacko this family twice. And so they got theirs, we got ours. You know what I'm saying? Ozzy says, came for Janet and got Candace. Yes, I'm sorry. That's exactly what happened. That is going to be the story of her campaign if this campaign crashes due to this information. And you can see they're trying to contain this and keep us out of the media. But I'm getting phone calls and people are now realizing that there's something very sinister that's up. And we have more information, but I just want to vet the information over the weekend before we get back to you guys on Monday with more bombs, because where there's smoke, there's fire, and there is a lot of smoke right now over near Vioris's background and her family. Dr. Jules writes, I hope Janet Jackson sends Candace a huge basket of flowers with a thank you note. Candace, you earned it. She doesn't have to. You know, she gave us good music. Michael Jackson gave us good music. There's just a reverence that I have for that family and what they have been through and what the media has done to them. And so I consider it my distinct honor to be able to do this. You know, they messed with the bull and they got the horns. Creasy writes, I'm from California and have witnessed Kamala Harris's political rise. And it's 100% true that she never claimed being half Black. Yes, you can even go back, by the way, on Wikipedia entries and confirm this. It was just never a thing. And then it was a thing. So it's just really bizarre. And like I said, if I find a single Black person, after I have unveiled this and shown who her maybe mommy grandma is, if I catch you voting for her or saying something like the first Black female president, I'm going to personally find you. And I'm going to give you a no fives and a noogie, like an old school 90s noogie in the head. And there's going to be nothing you can do about that. That's what's going to happen. Let me find one Black person who says that. You hear me. You hear me right now. So she never claimed she was half Black. Every time she gained a new higher office, every story about her and interview she did always touted her as the woman of Indian descent that holds that office, including when she was elected to the U.S. Senate. Yes. Now I'm wondering, I'm going to have to really over the weekend do her genealogy. I'll do some like mock-ups, like if Oscar and Vioris, and Vioris is really Miss Iris, are actually her parents, what would that make her genetically? And it's majority Irish, exactly what Janet Jackson said. Also, who is Donald Harris? We just need to get to the bottom of this, guys. Anna J writes, hey, Candace, Jamaican here. You're definitely right. And once you said St. Elizabeth, I was like, yep, Vioris is definitely white. St. Elizabeth was mostly occupied by European settlers. And even today, most of our mixed race mulatto or lighter Jamaican people are from St. Elizabeth. Hope this helps. Yes, this helps. But Anna J, I'm going to need you to walk down to the county clerk's office. Okay. I need you looking up. I need you to find Christopher Harris. This is not enough. This comment is not enough, Anna J. I'm going to need you, if you are within striking distance of St. Elizabeth, to get down there. I'm going to need you walking graveyards and cemeteries, taking pictures, photos, emailing me at info@candace.com. Okay. You have now been selected to be one of our detectives that is on the ground in Jamaica. Do I need to go to Jamaica? Do I have to go to Jamaica? I mean, my family's from St. Thomas. I mean, if I have to go down there and personally start walking through cemeteries, I will. Like, I'm not above that. In fact, that's exactly where I want to be. Great food in Jamaica. I've never been there, but I know that I love Jamaican food. So we'll see what happens. Lastly, we have this individual, Trake Spree, I hope I'm saying that correctly, who writes, isn't it strange how Kamala only talks about her mother growing up, but she never mentions her father in her stories? Yes. Exceedingly strange. Like I said, it's always the dog that's not barking. She never wants to talk about her dad. It's like she doesn't really know him. It's like they just gave her a dad. And like I said, commies know how to change their identity. That is what they do best. I never trust a person that changes their name a bunch of times. We should have known what was up with Diddy. Puff Daddy, Diddy, the D, the I, the D, the Y, Puffy. What's going on here, little commie? Don't trust people that change their names, especially when you're dealing with a man. That is like very, very bizarre. Men should not be changing their names. There's just the custom of wanting to maintain your name when you are a man. There's some rare circumstances where you might, but you don't do it. You just don't do it unless you're a little like beaten in the head feminist and you're like, I'm going to take my wife's name. Don't even do that because that's embarrassing as well. So you are correct. And like I said, that was also the thing that was strange to me reading his piece about his Jamaican heritage is that he said nothing about his parents. Like, you can't tell me that you're just like, oh yeah, Miss Beryl and Oscar, and then nothing. Are these maybe not your parents? That's where I'm at. I'm like, maybe they aren't his parents. You can't share stories. Maybe the person he felt the closest to was Miss Iris. He kept talking about Miss Iris. So I've got to do more research into Chrissy Brown, Christiana. I need to do her percentage. I basically, this weekend, I am 23andMe. You know, I might find Kamala and swab her real quick. I don't know if that's a direct threat or a direct promise, but I might have to. I might have to just take one piece of hair off the top of her head. That's what I'm going to have to do. I'm just, when she's not looking. And the Secret Service might arrest me. Okay, whatever. How bad could it be? Felony, maybe, whatever. I feel like you guys will bail me out. I feel like that's what you guys will do. I think that's why you guys are donating to locals.com, because there's a chance that I get arrested for just taking one little piece of hair off the top of her head. And that's why I want to thank you guys. Those of you guys who have signed up to support us on locals.com. Those of you guys who have purchased a Candace cup on clubcandace.com. You guys are the real heroes because, as you know, we are not monetized here, but we don't care because we are owned by the people and we're going to keep investigating this. And so Monday will be explosive. Everybody do your homework. This is your weekend homework. I know I hate to be that teacher that just assigns like homework on the weekend, but you guys got weekend homework. Everybody's coming down this rabbit hole with me. We'll see you on Monday.